Hi guys, it's Papatsi here, and I am in my mom's home right now in Nunavut, where I've been isolating myself for the past couple of weeks now. And I'm really excited to sew with you guys today because I haven't really been able to be productive and crafty at all yet, so this is gonna be as good for me as hopefully it is for you, because I'm picking up my materials again and turning on my sewing machine, which is fun for me. It's a fun hobby for me, sewing. So today I am working from home with what I have, and I have been able to find some materials, enough materials for a small ladies parka, and we're gonna make a small ladies parka together. I have chose to line the parka with this nice brown quilted lining. It has ripstop on this side, so it's wind resistant as well. It has what would you call it? Thinsulate. Maybe you've seen that before. Thinsulate. So it's very thin, but it has good wind protection and insulation, so it'll be warm. And for the shell of the parka, I have chose to use navy blue commander that is also water and wind repellent, and this red bias tape, seamstress, and this nice, I want to add some sparkle to this parka. So some materials that will be helpful to have on hand are some good scissors, as well as pins, a ruler, and a measuring tape. This is my measuring tape. Also a writing utensil. This is what I like to use. It's chalk. So if I write on the material that I'm using, I can just wipe it off. But if you don't have chalk, that's fine. You could use a pen or a pencil, as long as you make sure that that side that you drew on is not the side that will be showing. You will also want to have an ironing board and an iron. So I will take you through my process of making a parka, and I will show you how I thread my sewing machine, cut out my pattern, make pockets on a parka, sew my seamstress on the edge of my parka, and then how I put on my zipper. If you don't already have a pattern to use, I encourage you to ask family to share a pattern with you, and then you can alter it, you know. Just a basic pattern is good to start out with, and then you learn how to put that pattern together, and over time, as you get better, you will learn how to alter it on your own. If you are not comfortable with asking family for a pattern, you could always resort to the internet. I've Googled before patterns online to buy, and they cost like $2 or $3. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can even find a pattern to be downloaded for free. This is the small ladies parka pattern that I will be using today, and I'm going to start by pinning it on the material. So here is our commander. What I have done is I have folded it in half. So I folded the material over here so that when I cut out this front panel, there are two pieces. Also, I want to show you guys the grain of the material. Most material is like this. You can see the fraying at the edge as well as dotted lines. That shows you the grain of the material. So the grain of the material is going this way. So what we want to do is we always want to have our pattern then going this way, the opposite direction, so that our garment is not going to be pulling in weird ways. That's just one tip I wanted to share with you guys. And now to the pinning. I love the sound of sharp scissors. So now we have 2 even front pieces that will need ironing. I always iron out my pattern again after cutting it out, just to keep it really nice and clean. Get all those wrinkles out. So there's 2 parts to this sleeve. This is the part that goes over the shoulder, and this is the part that goes under the armpit, and they sew together like this. We're also going to want to have 2 rectangular pieces cut out. These will be for the pockets, the welt pockets. We're going to make 7-inch long pockets. So this end, this side of the rectangle is going to want to be at least more than 7 inches. These ones right now are measuring at like 8.5 inches on this side and then 15 on the other. I will tell you more about this when we get to the pockets. So that's it for cutting out the shell. You can see I have a lot of scraps. I tried to use what I had as much as possible. And I think we did a pretty alright job. So now all the pieces of the shell are ironed out. I'm gonna be able to start sewing it now, but first of all, I will cut out the lining. And often what I do is I cut out the shell pattern first, and then with the shell pattern, I use the shell pattern to cut the lining out, just so I know like they're the same pattern being cut out. And with the shell and the lining, like you want them to be the exact, like the same size. Like you don't need to add more seam allowance on the outer shell. You just use the same pattern, because when you are putting the shell of the coat and the lining of the coat together, it'll all come together nicely with it being the same pattern used for both lining and shell. So let's cut out the lining now before we start sewing the shell. Gotta try and use as much of the material as possible. As much as you can, so you don't waste material. So I'm thinking I can fit the hood piece over here. We'll see. Last but not least, the hood part that we only need one of, so. Alright, so we have the shell and the little lining cut out now. So now we're gonna just set our sewing machine and start sewing. So this is my sewing machine, and it may differ from yours, but most sewing machines that I've used anyways, they have a pedal foot and a cord to attach to an outlet. So you want to do that, hook them up, turn it on, and this this little circular thingy here. This it moves the needle for you. If you spin it, it moves it up and down. Also, most sewing machines have this is the backspace. Usually most sewing machines, you press it down to reverse and then lift it up and it goes forward. Also speed. You want to get to know your own sewing machine, so I recommend looking at a manual, and if you don't have a manual online, there's usually digital copies of a manual, and so just get to know your sewing machine well. But there's many stitches here, and what is often used is just the straight stitch. So number 1, I always use that straight stitch. Sometimes I'll use the zigzag stitch, number 3, for stretchy materials, just to give the stitch more pull so that it doesn't break. And one that I've really started to love using is this number 27. It is it's really great for at the end of zippers. You want to just like secure the end of the zipper on there really well, and so just to add that little tight stitches back and forth really adds extra security to keeping your zipper on there. And the rest, honestly, I have not really touched much at all. So yeah, get to know your own sewing machine and your sewing machine's tensions, because that's important to having a nice clean sewing line. So we'll start off by winding our bobbin. I usually do this with 2 hands, but I'm going to try and do it with 1 now so I can keep recording. I stuck the thread there, and then you put it through your sewing machine's necessary loops so that it has good tension. Usually there's like little arrows or diagrams to direct you how to thread your machine, and then secure it on the bobbin. And most sewing machines, all you got to do to go to bobbin winding mode is change it to the left or right, and then it's in bobbin winding mode, and then you just press on the pedal. It usually will just stop when it's done. There, it's done. And then so you put it back to sewing mode. Usually right beside the bobbin there's something like this where you can just cut off the bobbin. There you go. Then we're gonna stick it inside of our machine. And it's so important to get this right, because if you don't stick in the bobbin properly, then your stitches could be loose and the tension could be weird. So I know for my machine, you don't want to put it in this way, for example, where the thread is going like this, you know. For my machine, you want to put it in like this way, where the thread goes this way. And actually most machines that I've used are like that. So you stick it in, and then like so, through this little area. Make sure it clicks. There. Now it's placed in there properly. Close it back up. And now we gotta deal with this spool of thread. And then for this part, we want to go back to this thing and turn it, because we want to make sure that inside the sewing machine, as you can see, it's going up. There's this thing that you gotta put the thread, you gotta stick the thread on that, okay? So, get our thread. There, it's hooked on. Pull it down. And then we want to put our thread behind this thing. Like that. And then all that's left to do is thread this thread through this needle hole. The needle is now threaded, and before we start sewing, I just want to show you a bit more about the sewing machine and the feet of the sewing machine. So this is the foot of the sewing machine, and right now it is up, but most sewing machines have a little lever. Mine is right here, and you put it down to make the foot go down. Lift it up to make the foot go up. And so once we place our fabric underneath here, we will put the foot down and start sewing. But right now I just want to show you more about the feet. This is the foot that I generally use for sewing. I like it because it has other like lines on it to show you that you're going to be sewing a straight line. You can easily take it off like this. And then most sewing machines come with other feet. The ones that I use most would be this one, and then there's this one, which is the zipper foot. We're going to be using this foot later, and right now I'll just show you how to put it on. So with the zipper foot, you could easily make a mistake and put it on backwards. This would be backwards, okay? We don't want to do that. We don't want to put it on backwards like that. So it goes on this way. So it should look like that if you are sewing the zipper on the right side. And you could also put it on like that if you are sewing on a zipper that is on your left side. So with the zipper foot, you always want to make sure that you are in the clear and that your needle can go through like so. Because, for example, if you had moved your needle a little bit over to the right, your needle would hit the metal foot and it would break. So we always want to make sure with the zipper foot that our needle is in the clear, just to avoid breaking a needle. So I just wanted to show you guys laid out the pieces to our pattern, the pieces to our parka. We have the hood pieces right here on the left, and then the back piece of the parka, the front part where the zipper will be attached, and then we have our arms. So now we're going to start sewing our shell, and I'll start off by taking these two pieces because I'm going to show you guys how to make pockets. So to sew this pockets together, what we're going to need is those two little rectangles that we cut out earlier. We will also need our front pieces. And what I like to do is I like to kind of place the piece kind of on my body and just gauge where it would be comfortable to have a pocket. And so for me right now, it's feeling like it would be here. So I just kind of like pinch the area and put it down and use my chalk to kind of just mark roughly where I want the pocket. And we're gonna grab our ruler. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. I usually make my pocket 7 inches long. So, oh, by the way, I just bought this ruler. I didn't own a ruler before. What I would do before is I would have my measuring tape, and I would measure with my measuring tape, and then just take any like straight edge, maybe like a hardcover book or a piece of cardboard or something, and I'd use that as my ruler. But so I invested in a ruler finally, yay! So we're gonna make a pocket 7 inches long. I know some people were interested in learning how to do a zipper pocket, but maybe I could say that for another video. Yeah. So we have our pocket line, we have marked on our parka where the pocket's gonna be. Next, what you wanna do is place your ruler onto the material and draw a line. There are my rough marks of where I want to have my pocket placed. I'm going to take my ruler and align it, kind of align it with where I want to have my pocket. So I'm going to mark at the 7 inches mark. And I'm also going to mark at 1/2 inch from 7 inches. Next, I'm going to make a line straight down. And then this is what we have. I'm going to follow through with the lines. At the 1/2 inch, at the 7 inch mark and 1/2 from 7 inch mark. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to make a line that I will follow. I'm not going to do a whole 1/2 inch. I'm going to do it right here. Just one line from 1 inch, just so it's not too wide. That's just personal preference. You can make a wide welt pocket if you'd like. I just think the smaller ones look dainty. We'll do the same up here. And then from the lines we've just created, we're going to make a line all the way down with our ruler. And do it on the other side. This is next level sewing for me because I'm doing it all with one hand. So there we have our little, where our welt pocket is going to be. Next, what I do is from the center, I draw to the corner. Draw to the corner. Same thing down here. And then we're ready to cut this pocket. I love to use my cute little scissors to do this delicate work. Now our pocket is cut. You can see how it should look. So now that we have our hole through our material where our welt pocket will be, we have to make a hole on the other side. So what I do for this part is I grab the other piece and I just place it exactly on top, aligning them. I flip it around, again making sure that they are aligned at all edges so that the pocket will be in the same spot on the other side. Then we take our writing utensil and we draw the lines where we had cut. Then you take this piece off and take your ruler again, draw all those lines again, the 7 inches mark, and draw the box where you will cut before you cut it, just to make sure it's measured out properly, okay? So here is our little slit, and we're gonna fold this piece over and we're gonna iron it down straight as you can. And do the corners. Sorry, the little triangles. Iron those down. There we go. And now we have a hole in our front piece where our welt pocket will go. Okay, so next we are going to continue working on the pockets, and this hole that we've made, it's less than 1 inch wide. So what we're gonna do next is fold this rectangle at least 1 inch wide. Let me grab my ruler. And we'll iron it down, okay? Just to keep it down. This is where our hand is going to go in our pocket, our welt pocket, and it'll be placed like this. So we're just gonna want to sew along here. We're not gonna sew on this side yet. So this is what a pocket should look like right now. And then all we're gonna do next is take this piece, align it, and we're gonna sew it to this piece right here, okay? Okay, so now it should look like this. We're gonna sew along here again, the top, bottom, and then this side. Just to keep it extra secure on these ends where the pocket will pull, and then top stitch this side down as well too. So this is how it's looking on the outside now. Now what we're going to do is on this side, we are going to sew from here, a curved pocket all the way down. So here we have our pocket on this side and how it looks on the other side. And you want to do the same steps for the other side of the front. So once we have our hood sewed together, what I do is I don't do the full knots, but I do put little cuts through this part because it's curved, and we're going to do a top stitch, and we want it to lay out nicely, not pulling the material, not looking like it's the material's being pulled. We'll do the same on the other side. So I'm going to sew a top stitch, making sure that these are flat down on this side because I'm putting this top stitch on this side of the seam. we're gonna sew the seamstress onto the sleeve. What I usually do is, here's the package of bias tape, and it usually comes rolled on a piece of cardboard. I cut it to my preferred length for bias tape, and this is how I measure. I could do it this way, then I would put the seamstress up here, this height, or I could have it lower, like around here. And I think today I'm gonna do it lower. So this is how I make sure that I have an even line all along the edge of my coat. There, so our seamstress on, and I had said I was going to add this earlier, but I'm going to hand sew it, so that'll just take some time. I'm going to do that. I'm going to hand sew it on like this. So, be right back. All right. It took some time to hand stitch on all these rhinestones, but it's done now, and I think it's worth it. It's looking really good, and so I'm just gonna sew the parka together now. I pinch a little bit where the center of the garment is and the center of the hood before I'm going to sew it together, so I know that it does align right in the center. And I start in the center. And then, because this hood is a real curved part of the coat, we're going to want to do little clips again before we do a top stitch so that the material isn't pulling. making sure not to cut too far into the material so that we don't cut our stitches. You want to make sure all of this is going to be under your top stitch, so keep it all on the one side. That is gonna bug me, so I'm gonna take it undone and redo it. And I would really recommend this. Getting in the habit of fixing your mistakes right away, even if it involves taking it apart, because that's how you're going to make nice things, is if you have the patience and correct your mistakes. So that's better. Yay! So I've sewn on this side of the arm, and I measured from the top of the shoulder seam to the seam on my sleeve, and it's about 10 centimeters, so I'm going to use that to place the other sleeve on in the right place, like 10 centimeters from the shoulder seam. So once you have both of your arms sewn on like this, we're going to want to get ready to do a top stitch along this seam to add extra support to our arm seam. But before we do that, again, we're going to want to cut, because the arm is such a rounded area. We want to do some, what's the word? I forget the word, but just little cuts all around. There. I find it looks so much nicer with a top stitch. So it's coming together. And I'll just do the other side quickly now. So the shell of the coat is now complete, and I will just now sew the lining before we can sew it together. So the lining of the coat is now done. As you can see, I've added 2 strips of commander just along the edge of the coat here. It's not necessary, but I like to do it to help with sewing the zipper on, and I think it looks really clean, so I've done that just along the edge. I would have done it along here too if I had more of the same color commander, but unfortunately I don't have any right now. So next we're going to pin the bottom of the coat lining to the coat shell. So here's the inside of the coat lining. So we want to align it with the outside part of the shell, so like this, and make sure that the seams are in line with each other, and then pin it in place before we're going to sew it. So it's all pinned, and we're going to start sewing it this way over here. Then we'll take the pins off, and because this is a curved coat, we want to do notches in the bottom material as well, but we won't just do little cuts, but we'll actually do little triangles just because it's thicker material. And when we fold it inside out, the curve will be nicer. Okay. So the bottom is sewn together now. Just make sure it looks good. Then we'll move on to cuffs. I'm gonna put cuffs on this coat, and we'll do that next. So what I like to do for the cuffs is stick my hand through the lining, grab the seam that I'm going to be aligning with the seam in the shell, and then stick my hand through the shell, grab that same seam right here, and pull it through like this, just so I know I'm aligning it with the right seam, because there's been times where I've lined it up with the wrong seam and then it was twisted inside the arm, so we want to avoid doing that. And so we're going to align these 2 seams together and sew it together like this, but we want to add a cuff, so we're going to stick the cuff in between them like this. So just stick the cuff inside, and it's going to be put in like that, in between the lining and commander. Sometimes it's difficult to get a grip on these and stick it under the sewing machine nicely, but you want to be patient and make sure they're aligned, all 3 materials aligned well, and then also the seam. I also like to sew the cuff on with the commander on top, just so you know that it's sewing smoothly, because sometimes it's hard when you're sewing 3 layers to know if the commander, if it was underneath, it could pleat without you realizing, and then it would really show when we flip the parka right side out. So as you go along, you want to be pulling the cuff so that it fits your armhole, fits around your armhole. Slowly but surely with the cuffs. And there we have a cuff. We have the bottom of the parka sewn together now, and we have the cuffs on, so the arms are sewn together. Next, what we're going to do is sew the hood together. So our parka's like this, attached at the bottom. We're going to flip it this way so that the inside of our hood is going to be with the outside of our shell. And again, fold it to find the center and then pin it down all along. So we have our hands sewn together, the bottom of our coat sewn together, and now the hood sewn together. So we're gonna flip it in right side out. And we're gonna stick our arms out. Starting to look like a coat, a parka. And now all that's left to do is stick the zipper on. And then top stitch around the hood, around the zipper, and the bottom. So I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how to explain how I do my zipper. But maybe it's better if I just show you how I do it. But I'll try to explain the best way I can. The shape of our sewing machine allows us to sew from with our material on this side, right? So I like to sew my zipper bottom, starting from the bottom going upwards, but it's not easy to do that on this side because the whole, like all this jacket would be on the right side, you know? So I like to start out with this side of the parka because I'm gonna start sewing the zipper from the top down. And then wherever the zipper ends up being on like the lines, like wherever the zipper ends up being, it'll be easier for me to match the seamstress or the seamstress with this side, because I can sew this side in a more like easier way from the bottom up, because of the way our sewing machine is shaped to allow us to sew this way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I tried to explain it with words. Maybe it'll be easier to just observe now. So this is the zipper for this side of the coat. So I'm just gonna start by pinning it because I don't want the material to stretch to pull. So now I'm just gonna sew the zipper onto the cover of the parka. I'm gonna switch my foot to the zipper foot. And because I'm sewing my zipper down like this, I'm gonna put it on this side. There's like a line right here on the zipper, and as you can see, with the zipper foot, with my needle being in the middle and my zipper foot being close to the teeth of the zipper, it almost aligns with that line. So I like to keep my zipper foot close to the zipper. Close to the teeth of the zipper. So we have one side of the zipper sewn onto the shell of the parka now, and then we're going to align the other side to match. We want to make sure that the scenic is matching. So right this is what I usually do to make sure it matches. Like a centimeter would be folded over, so it would be like about here that it would have to attach. So I'm gonna unzip it. And stick my first pin where I want them to match up. Next, I'm going to sew this lining onto the zipper. I'll start out by ironing this down, like with this much, what is it, like a centimeter? Iron it down and then pin it. After it's ironed down, we'll pin it in place along the length of the zipper before we sew it. So this is our parka completed, minus the fur. All that's left now is the fur. We have our pockets, cuffs, closed off end and hood, and the zipper that we did. I'll just sew on the fur now and show the final complete product. And because we put rhinestones on, I'm thinking a crystal fox fur would look really nice on this parka. And here we have the finished results of the parka that we made together.